podium.
I'll try to speak loud enough so regardless of whether this thing works or not, you can hear me. Thank you very much. My name is Ryan DeMonso, as you mentioned. I'm a senior manager out of Saskatoon, so I lead Deloitte's SRD practice in Saskatchewan. SRD and ED being scientific research and experimental development. And we've had the opportunity to work with Noodlecake for the last couple of years, Jordan and the folks at Noodlecake. And you know, it's been quite an honor actually. Noodlecake is regarded as a real success story in Saskatchewan. If you're familiar with the Apple App Store and the Android platform, you know, Noodlecake has been very successful with a couple of their games, Super Stickman Golf. And you know, I think what really defines their success is not only their success on their games of past, but you know, their ability to shift and focus on where future opportunities will be. So I'm not sure if you're aware, but Noodlecake has expanded and now is moving more into moving into a publishing business as well. And, you know, and I think that really speaks to their ability to be dynamic and really go where they need to go in the market. So they've had great success already in publishing games for others, and if you now look at the App Store and the Google platform Play Store, Noodlecake often has multiple titles in the top 100, which is really, I mean, really remarkable for a company in Saskatchewan or Manitoba to have that presence. So I'll let Jordan take over from here, but I just want to thank him again for coming out and speaking, and I really look forward to his speech. Thanks. Here's Jordan Shidlowski.
Thanks, Ryan. Okay, so I always like to know a little bit about my audience before I start. How many technical people are in the room today? So we've got a few technical people, and how many kind of business development people are in the room today? Okay, a few you guys as well. Okay, so yeah, my name's Jordan Shidlowski. Started a little small video game company called Noodlecake Studios about a year and a half ago now. And what this presentation is about is mainly about the business side of developing mobile games. But a few technical people in the room too. I've left lots of room for questions, so we can keep this kind of informal, and if you have questions about technically what we're doing, just feel free to interrupt and ask. Again, I can kind of go wherever you guys want me to go with this presentation, so I can benefit you guys the most. So brief introduction. I'll give you a little history about Noodlecake. I used to actually work in voice over IP for quite a long time. I went to school at the U of S, got my comp sci degree, worked in voice over IP, worked in satellite communications, then moved over to web development, back-end and front-end stuff. And at the last company I worked for doing web development, a designer there and myself decided to make a game in our spare time. That game was completely, the scope was way too big for that game, and eventually we created a new game called Stick Golf, which was very simple, and then decided to try our hand in the App Store, launched it, and you know, once that kind of took off, we said, okay, well, maybe we should do this full-time kind of thing. We launched that product close to 2.5 years ago, and after that we incorporated and have been a corporation for about a year and a half. So since then, we've built a few internal titles, developed all entirely in-house. Recently, we've been focusing a lot on multi-platform mobile games. The big one, the big success story of Noodlecake, I think, is the game Super Stickman Golf. That's our flagship title right now. It's still our title that brings in the majority of our revenue, and it's still the title that sells the best on all the platforms we sell it on. We initially launched it on iOS, but since then we've ported it to Android, BlackBerry, and Roku. If you guys aren't familiar with Roku, Roku is something similar to the Apple TV that they sell. I don't know if they sell them in Canada, but it's a little device that you can stream media from. We do have the original Stickman Golf, and then also we've developed a title called Lunar Racer that is on iOS and Android. More recently, we've also, as Ryan mentioned, got into publishing games for game developers. The market in mobile video games now is definitely not what it was 2 years ago. It's very, very competitive. It's tough to, it's getting tougher for independent video game developers to become successful in this market just due to the sheer amount, or due to how competitive it is now. 2 years ago, it was, the opportunities were a lot better for indie developers. Now it's quite competitive. So we have been trying to help, especially indie developers, get their titles onto Android. The biggest title, or not the biggest, but one of the big titles we launched initially was Trainyard, which was developed by Matt Ricks, who's a Canadian, so we're pretty happy about that. Some of the other games we've published on Android recently, a really cool game is called Hubrix. Actually, if you have an Android device and you open up the Google Play Store, you'll see that Hubrix is featured on the front page right now. So that obviously generates a lot of downloads for that title. And Velocispider is another independent video game that we released a couple weeks ago now. And actually today we just launched League of Evil for Ravenous Games on Android. So check that one out as well. That's a really cool game. And we also have published quite a few other Android titles as well. So when I was working in web development, I really wasn't, you know, if you asked me 2 years ago, if I knew you, or if I knew you, and you asked me, what do you see yourself doing in the future, I would have never guessed doing video games. And it's really quite strange because most other video game developers, that has been their passion from like when they were kids, you know, like I want to make video games. But for me, I never ever envisioned that I would make video games. You know, 3 years ago I was really passionate about web development, and that's what I really focused on, and that's what I concentrated on. But when the opportunity came up to build kind of a product in our spare time, we actually, the guy I worked with who was my designer, we actually sat down and I had built an app. It was a personal training app for weightlifting in the gym. And it did all right. This was when the App Store kind of just came out. It did okay, and we wanted to do another app, and we actually kind of wanted to add the entrepreneurial kind of jitters, and we wanted to kind of create a product and see if we could make something out of it. So we looked at the App Store, and we kind of looked at it from strictly a market-first approach. We kind of looked at it and said, well, what app is going to give us the best chance of success? And at the time, the mobile gaming industry was just taking off. And we had never done, I had done a video game in computer science, but it was nothing like a polished game. It was really like a kind of silly prototype. But that was the market that seemed to have the most traction, and there was a lot of money being made in it at the time. So we actually decided to do a video game purely out of the business perspective that this is a good opportunity. And it just turned out to be that building video games was really fun too, so that this is just a bonus. But excuse me, I also have a little bit of a cold today, so please excuse me if I'm sniffling and coughing up here. But yeah, we looked at it, and gaming was just huge. It was huge on mobile. It still is huge. This graph is from February of 2012. I don't know if you can read that. It might be a little tough to read, but it's not going to go anywhere. Gaming is just becoming more and more competitive on the mobile platform. So that's actually the initial reason why we got into video game development in the first place. And it's interesting. The thing about mobile video games is it's just a completely different demographic from people who traditionally play video games. I mean, the demographic for mobile video games is everyone. It's children, it's females, it's people over 60. It's incredible. And these demographics are, 5-7 years ago are traditionally not demographics that are going to spend a lot of their time playing video games, especially console or PC-based games. It's interesting. It's a whole kind of ecosystem: smartphones, tablets, app stores, etc. So there's been a lot of. I mentioned the space is very competitive, and there's been a lot of acquisitions in the space, over the last couple of years. EA acquires Firement. Firement is a company that made a game called Flight Control, which really it's kind of one of those success stories on iOS where it just takes off like crazy. They also have a game called Real Racing that it does quite well on mobile as well. EA acquired Chilingo. Chilingo is a publisher of video games, primarily mobile. I believe they also did kind of web-based stuff before mobile, but I think now they're really concentrating on mobile. They acquired PopCap, which again is kind of like a social casual gaming company. They did a game called Peggle, and you guys might be familiar with that game. It's also a PC game as well. Made some smaller acquisitions. Byte is the company that made NBA Jam on mobile. And Zynga just like acquires everyone, it seems like. If you get any kind of traction in multiplayer mobile games, Zynga just swallows you up. New Toy was the company that originally had built Words with Friends. That's you guys might have heard that one. That's really popular. And then obviously the last one a couple months ago was OMG Pop for $180 million, which is just ludicrous. But that's what's happening right now in this kind of space, and that's just kind of a testament to how competitive it's really getting. So yeah, the thing about mobile video games is it's completely non-traditional from, it's not like traditional video gaming. A lot of things have changed. When I was looking, when we were kind of looking at the past and what developers needed to do to become a video game developer, it was so tough to develop video games, especially independent video games. The demographic is quite different. I kind of touched on it earlier, but mobile video games, anyone can be a gamer. And instead of, traditionally, you either need to buy a game or buy a console. Basically, mobile video games have turned anyone into a potential customer. People who have never thought, like my parents would never play video games, but yet my dad's playing games on the iPad now. And traditionally, he would never, when I grew up, I had a Nintendo and a PlayStation or whatever, like he would not touch the thing because he just wasn't interested. But now, all of a sudden, 60 years old, he's playing games on the iPad, which is crazy. And I assume this is, I think this is the same for a lot of people. They just have access to these devices now. It's so easy to get games now. The price of games are anywhere from free to $1. It's just a lot easier for a wide demographic to be playing video games now. So that's very non-traditional compared to, say 10 years ago or 5 years ago. The development has also changed. For video game for somebody to get into video game development, especially independent video game development, 5 years ago, it would be quite tough. The software development kits from Nintendo or Sony or Microsoft, et cetera, are really, really expensive, and they're not the greatest tools to be using. Typically, you're going to need a little bit of a larger team to actually get anything done on some of those platforms. Apple, again, they have kind of a tendency to revolutionize industries, and with the tools they provided when they released their original iPhone, it just made it incredibly quick and simple to develop video games, which has changed the whole way people develop video games. If you look in mobile right now, there's hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands or tens of thousands of examples of 1 or 2 man teams that have been able to build a successful game. And I think Noodlecake is a prime example. Our games were developed with 2 people. Our flagship game has still only been developed with 2 people, 1 programmer or 1 designer. Distribution was another one that was really tough for video games. when you're actually manufacturing cartridges or manufacturing CDs or DVDs, distribution becomes a big problem because you actually have to have money to manufacture these. You have to get shelf space. All these kind of problems that are, these are tough problems, and usually they require a lot of capital to actually solve. Marketing, again, that was another tough one. You need to figure out a way to market your game. Now it's just word of mouth, internet. You can do so much of your marketing yourself, whereas previously you might have to invest in magazines and television, etc. And sales. I mean, this is another, again, Apple kind of started this, but actually selling a video game, could be quite hard, especially internationally, dealing with taxes, dealing with distributors, et cetera, et cetera. And now, with the click of a button, I can upload a game to Apple, and it sells in 250 countries. I don't have to worry about taxes. I don't have to worry about credit cards. I do have to pay Apple 30% of every dollar I make, but a lot of people complain about that. But I see it as it's not. I actually don't think it's that bad, considering, again, I can click a button, upload a file, and sell this product and worldwide, essentially hassle-free. I mean, that's pretty incredible. So I think the major way people still discover games on mobile right now is just sheer visibility. When I ask my friends, I see my friends playing a game I wouldn't think they would be playing, and I always ask them, how did you find that game? Why are you playing it? How did you download it? And like 95% of the time, one of my friends will say, oh, I just opened up the top 25 and downloaded the number one app. They know nothing about it, and they just see it and they download it. Excuse me. A lot of these people haven't really bought their device to play games on specifically. They bought a personal communication device, a cell phone. It just so happens that this device is an incredibly powerful device to play games on. And they don't really, some of the niche video game community will read reviews on websites, and will go and search for what are good games on iPhone and iPad, but the majority is people just, if they can't buy your game if they can't see it. And so if you can get your game visible on any of the app stores, Android, Apple, that's your best chance of getting a lot of sales. So there's kind of a few different demographics that we've kind of targeted and isolated. There's a demographic that are typically, what I would consider gamers, which is kind of B here. These are people that are familiar with video games, that have grown up playing video games. Primarily they're, males, 13 to 40. There's also, another demographic, which is children and females that are just killing it in mobile right now. Monetize, I've got a few slides coming later, but there's a certain demographic of females that is just really monetizing well in terms of revenue from this demographic, and I'll show you that in a bit. But there's a few demographics. I mean, if you can build a game that appeals to everyone, that appeals to hardcore gamers, that appeals to casual gamers, that appeals to people who've never touched a video game before, that's kind of the keys to building a successful mobile game. So a lot of and I've got a lot of graphs in this presentation, and a lot of these graphs, I'll just kind of note that they're coming from a company called Flurry. Has anybody heard of Flurry or uses Flurry in their apps? Okay. Yeah, so Flurry, the interesting thing about Flurry is they're becoming so powerful, just the sheer amount of data they collect. What Flurry does is they offer a free software development kit that you can integrate into your game or app, that you can basically run analytics for. So you can record events, you can track sessions, you can track how many times people open up your app, et cetera, et cetera. But they provide all this for free. And the reason they do that is because the sheer amount of data they collect is very, very valuable to market research firms, et cetera, et cetera. And they're able to produce some of these graphs because they have their software embedded in hundreds of thousands of apps, kind of thing. So the sheer amount of data they collect is really incredible. So you can see here that they've kind of compared the traditional gamer to the mobile social gamer, and you can actually see that traditional gamer is primarily male, whereas the social mobile gamer is actually primarily female. Here's another chart from Fleury, just kind of illustrating eCPM, which is revenue through advertising by audience age and gender, and you can see there's a big spike in there for females aged 25 to 34. And this isn't the first source I've heard of that. I've heard of that from a few other sources on the internet. But if you actually think about that, it's quite interesting because I've heard that that demographic of 25 to 34 female. There's a lot of games that are built right now to just specifically target that demographic. If you launch up an iPhone or Android phone and you kind of look at some of these freemium games that are out there, but there's a lot of games that are targeted directly at that. Dream Dresses, I think, is one. Obviously, Farmville, that's kind of one that has this mass appeal. These kind of story-based freemium games where you have to build your fashion store or whatever you kind of have you. They actually monetize that chunk quite well. So for Stickman Golf, we sell it as a premium game on iOS right now. We've had our hand in doing kind of the free promotions, which I highly recommend if you're actually building a game or launching an app. Give it away for free for a while, change it back to paid, experiment with pricing models. But there is kind of a few standard pricing areas for apps. I mean, there's kind of the really premium games, which you're going to be paying $5 or more for. There's the higher quality, I would consider them, video games, which you might be paying $2 to $5 for. And then there's kind of the low 99-cent games and just free games. Some examples are, Infinity Blade, Final Fantasy. These are the really high quality $5 and up titles. And then the freemium and 99-cent games, Angry Birds, for example, Cut the Rope, Tiny Tower, those kind of games. And you can make money in all three, all three pricing models. You can make money, but I think your best bet is to either hit groups A and C, which are either a really high quality game that you can charge $2 to $5 for, or a game that's either 99 cents or free. The freemium model right now is just killing it on mobile, especially on Android, and I can talk about that in a bit. But yeah, the freemium model is something that's really taking off. It's kind of generated this massively competitive advertising market where there's just tons of advertising networks. I probably get like 5 emails a day from ad company X asking me to integrate their SDK into one of our products, and it's really competitive. But if you can do it right, you can make a lot of money. The interesting thing about freemium, and in case you don't know what freemium is, it's basically giving your product for free and making up revenue through in-game transactions. So whether it's through advertising or whether you sell a virtual currency in your game, you give the game initially away for free and you recoup revenue through some other in-game model. But the interesting thing about freemium games, if you go onto an app store or Android and you look at a lot of these freemium games, they're really designed to appeal to a wide demographic. I mean, the biggest one obviously is Farmville. That was kind of the first one that hit it big on web and later on mobile. But you look at other freemium games like Pet Shop Story, Zoo Story. There's like Dream Dresses, Pocket Potions, Tiny Tower, Tiny Town, Tiny Zoo. All these games are pretty much the same game where you're building some sort of city or some sort of store, and you manage the store and grow it. But if you actually look at the types of characters and the types of animation these games use is they're always very cartoony. They're always very child-friendly. Smurfs Village is another big one. But they're really not geared towards hardcore video gamers. They're more geared towards everyone. And we were thinking at Noodlecake, we were like, oh, everybody's making so much money with freemium games right now. We got to make one too, right? So we kind of brainstormed for a day, and we came up with really cool a freemium game based on taking over the universe. So you could harvest resources from planets. It's like a space exploration game, and you could conquer alien colonies, and you can build up your empire. And then it just kind of got crazy. But then we sat back and took a look at it, and we realized it'd be a really cool game for like a really small subset of people. So people that like, if you really love Star Wars, you might like this game, you know. And the graphics were really quite intense. And the problem with that is that wouldn't work because it only appeals to a very small amount of people. It would only appeal to kind of like hardcore gaming people or hardcore science fiction people. And all the other freemium games out there are like big cartoony characters and building a zoo, which you can argue could appeal to a lot more people than a science fiction exploration game would. So we kind of put the kibosh on that idea. But some interesting statistics. 65% of all revenue generated in the top 100 iOS games is now coming from freemium games. So if you think about that, most of the money being made on mobile right now is coming from giving your product away for free initially. And the other one that really shocked me, again, these are coming from Flurry, these figures, but the other one that really shocked me was, consumers spend an average of $14 per transaction when making an in-app purchase, which is just crazy. But I had heard about these numbers before we built Super Stickman Golf on Android, and when we were looking initially at cross-platform, and we said, okay, well, let's try our hand in the Android market. Super Stick Golf, which was a paid game on iOS, we converted to a freemium game on Android. And we introduced a virtual currency called Golf Bucks. So if you guys aren't familiar with the game, it's a simple golf game. It's a 2D golf game. But you can basically have special powers when you hit the ball. So if I'm a golfer and I hit a shot into the water, I can take a mulligan. And I can only take a certain amount of mulligans around. Or I can use a sticky ball, which makes my ball stick to walls or stick to the green, or it sticks to whatever it hits first. We've got another power-up that lights your golf ball on fire, and you can hit it 5 times or 10 times farther than you normally could. So it's kind of golf with a kind of twist on it. But for Android, we ended up saying, okay, well, let's try and, I had heard the Android market, it's a tough market to charge upfront for video games. Android users typically, it's a lot tougher for them to sync up their credit card with their phone and get their credit card on their Google Play account and then actually purchase things. Not to mention that at the time, the market's a little bit more fragmented, so there's a lot more support costs. And there's just a big chance that if you buy a game, it might not even run properly on your Android phone. So we converted to a freemium game. We set up a virtual currency called Golf Bucks, and the Golf Bucks packages we made. We have a 99-cent package, we have a $2.99 package, an $8 package, a $15 package, and a $40 package for this virtual currency that you can use to buy power-ups in the game. And we make the most money by far off the $40 package. So like people are actually playing the game enough to spend $40 on Golf Bucks. And not only that, last month we were looking through the transactions for the last year. I think Super Stick Golf has been on the Android market for close to a year, and we were looking at looking through the year's transaction history, and we found a player that once every month or every 2 months buys a $40 Golf Bucks package. And I think this person has spent close to $300 or $400 in our game. I mean, and that's crazy, right? Like, I can't even think of, it's just ludicrous, right? But this is the reality. Like, there are people like that out there, and you know, a lot of these freemium game companies, these are the people they're targeting. When I've had meetings with some of these companies that specialize in freemium game mechanics, and they basically say, yeah, there's 2% of, they're basically, it's kind of like the gambler hunting for whales, right? There's these whales out there that will spend hundreds of dollars in your game. And I've got the advice that never cap out how far or how much you can spend in your game. You know, if you have an item in your game that takes 100 hours of gaming hours to acquire, just make an item that takes twice that. And if you think that's as far as users will go, make an item that takes 4 times that. Like, do not cap how much potential time or money somebody could spend in your game, because you're going to find like 0.5% of users. There's going to be those type of people out there that will just continually grind away and keep playing. There's some games that really do this well. Dragon Story. There's some Dragon one on iOS right now that's consistently been in the top grossing for close to a year now. Dragonvale, that's it. Yeah, but they kill it on monetization right now. But it's transactions like this that I never really believed until we actually put a product out there and I saw, oh my goodness, people are paying $40 for all these golf bucks, but they're out there.
Can you disclose how much you're at gross with the game now?
Pardon?
Can you disclose how much you're at like gross with the game now?
On Android or iOS or? Yeah. So one thing, again, like for numbers, I'm a big kind of believer in sharing numbers with people starting up, because when we started up, we had no idea how much money you can make, what you can expect to make from what market or whatever. And we went to GDC, and a few of the independent game developers shared their sales figures. And so, yeah, I definitely can share, you know, all of that kind of stuff with you guys. For iOS, Super Stick Golf, we've sold the majority of the time at 99 cents. And I think we've netted close to 650,000 for that game. So gross would maybe with another 30%, you know, be close to 850,000. So, and the interesting thing about Super Stick Golf iOS is we've had over 2 million downloads, but it's because we do these free app a day, free promotions. That's actually, I kind of, the success of Super Stickman Golf has really been the free promotions. If you can get some good promotion going and do a free promotion, definitely do it, because it ends up being really worth it if you can get any sort of traction. And we definitely wouldn't have had any sort of traction without doing a free promotion. On Android, we've netted close to. We were featured in Google Play the month after we launched on Android. And I think at one point we were making up to $800 a day through in-app transactions on Android. Now it's probably closer to $150 or $200 a day. And that's kind of leveled off quite a bit. So on Android, we maybe gross $8,000 a month for that title. And I think if you looked at the rank, I've got some charts showing the ranks of those two titles, but I think that you can probably correlate those sales numbers with kind of the rank of the app. I'll show you the ranks in a bit here coming up. Okay, so here's another one. We kind of learned this with Lunar Racer. So Lunar Racer we launched about 10 months ago, and we really found that consumable in-app purchases are the way to go. I mean, this chart kind of illustrates that, but we kind of found out firsthand that is indeed true. You can see from this chart on the left here, 68% transactions are actually going into consumable purchases, 30% are durable, and 2% are personalization. So a durable item would be like if you're playing an RPG and you see a sword there that can do 50% more damage than your current sword that you have, you can either go buy it, but once you buy it, you have it forever. So you buy a new sword, you have this new sword forever. It lasts forever. The consumable items are like one-off items where you use and you don't have any more after you use it, and if you want to have more, you have to buy more. So a consumable item might be like a power-up potion for an RPG. So you're in the middle of your battle, you're fighting some monster, and you've got half your life left, and you really don't want to die. but you can go buy a full life right now for X amount of dollars, but once you use it, it's gone kind of thing. So those are kind of consumable products, and personalization purchases are, you know, like changing the color of your character, changing the hat or whatever. And our whole, for our last game, Lunar Racer, our whole strategy of in-app purchases was based on personalization, which obviously didn't monetize that well because it turns out personalization is really not the bulk of what people are spending their money on in-game. It ends up turning out to be quite small. So it doesn't monetize that well. I mean, they monetize a little bit, personalization items, but they're definitely not what you want to be focusing on if you're looking at in-app purchases or virtual goods. And again, the chart on the right is just kind of comparing top grossing games from premium games versus freemium games, and the shift that's happened. You know, and those figures are from 2011. I suspect that freemium games are even higher now. So, as Ryan mentioned, we've kind of been focusing on Android a little bit. What we've seen on iOS the last 2 years, when we first got into iOS, is a super great opportunity for independent game developers. You could do a lot of everything. You could do a lot of your marketing yourself. It was a lot easier to hit it big. Now iOS is extremely competitive. I mean, if you have a product and you want to, you really think it's got that kind of big hit potential, it actually takes a ton of capital to launch your product properly, from marketing to install base to et cetera, et cetera. It's very competitive now, and it actually does take a lot of money to launch a product properly. Android, we kind of thought Android was a unique opportunity a year ago when we started focusing on Android, because what it looked like to me was the Android market almost looked identical to what the iOS market was 2 years ago. So there weren't a lot of big players. There was a legitimate opportunity. I think that the ecosystem, the hardware, the software on Android was getting a lot better. There's less problems. So we decided to kind of focus on Android and see what we could do there. EA, for example, has released more games on Android in the last 6 months than it has in the last 4 years, kind of thing. A lot of the big players, Chilingo, Zynga, everybody's launching on Android now because it is a very viable market. Again, and distribution advertising companies heavily investing in Android. Even a year ago, there wasn't that many ad networks, kind of unique. The types of things that were happening on iOS weren't really happening on Android yet. Now it's heating up big time, and we have a lot of different kind of partners on Android. And everybody always asks me, what do you think about RIM, right? Because we did do a BlackBerry game, or a BlackBerry port of the game, and in all honesty, it's just not performing well at all. And I think that's just the reality. I mean, I can't say anything more about RIM, but we're not really focusing on that platform at all moving forward.
Do you have anything to say about the difference between iOS and Android as far as how willing customers are to buy games?
Oh yeah.
Versus download free games?
Yeah, I think it's kind of changed in the last maybe 6 months a little bit. I think that people are finally coming. Also, Android's a little bit interesting because there's different distribution distribution stores. So the two biggest ones, at least for North America, are like Google Play and Amazon, right? Or Amazon App Store. So Google Play, definitely a year ago, like nobody's purchasing any games on Google Play. I mean, Angry Birds, prime example. They're a paid game on iOS. All their games are free on Android, right? There's a big problem with Google Play and having a paid game, and one is that just a lot of people don't end up registering their credit card on their Google account. Like I think that most people, the far majority of people with an Android device are just regular people who go into, a cell phone store and buy a phone, kind of thing. And they're, hey, I want to download some games. Oh, put in your credit card. And they don't really want to do that, it seems like. The second thing is that if you charge for something on Android, you actually have to support it pretty well. So again, a year ago, there's a lot of problems on Android, fragmentation, software problems. You could build a game and it would run fine on this phone, but this phone has a different GPU, and it turns out it's the number of polygons it can render per second is like a third of what this phone can do, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But bottom line is that this phone just runs your game horribly or it crashes. And that's just the reality of the Android market. I mean, things break way more often than iOS. There's way more support to do. There's way more fragmentation, hardware and software, et cetera, et cetera. So if you actually sell a game, and I think Mika Mobile is a company that came out and basically said, we're not going on Android anymore because the support costs are too much. We spend 90% of our day doing support for our Android games. I mean, that was kind of a wake-up call to the independent game developer community, because they basically had said that their games sell quite well, but it's not even worth going on Android because of the support costs. I was aware of that, and that's kind of why we've kind of started this Android publishing company, because we are doing all the support for developers, so we've completely eliminated that problem for people. But again, if you don't sell your game, if you give it away for free, and somebody has a problem with it, they're less inclined to contact you and say, hey, fix this. If they download a free game, it doesn't work, they're probably just going to not play it and move on with their lives, kind of thing. If they download a game, pay for it, and it doesn't work, they're going to email the developer asking for a refund or saying, fix this, et cetera, et cetera. So there's another reason why, I think people have gone into free games on Android. But I think the big one is that people just don't have their credit cards on their Google Play account. Now, that's for Google Play. Amazon App Store, different story. Amazon, when you buy a Kindle Fire through Amazon, you have to have an Amazon account to purchase the Kindle Fire. And if you have an Amazon account, you already have your credit card registered with them. So you actually, and what they do is they actually ship you your Kindle Fire with your account information pre-installed. So I go onto Amazon, I buy a Kindle Fire, it gets shipped to me. I have to buy it through my own account. It gets shipped to me, I open it up, and we have a Kindle Fire HD and a Kindle Fire at the office, but we open it up and it's already installed my Amazon account onto the device, and I'm literally one click away to buying things on the Amazon App Store. So it's more like the Apple ecosystem, where if you've got an iTunes account, your credit card's on your account and you can purchase things really easily. Google, there's this whole step of you actually have to put your credit card onto your account, which I think is a deterrent for paid purchases on Google. So Amazon's a little bit different, but the amount of people on Amazon compared to Google Play is like 100 to 1. For 100 downloads on Google Play, you'll get 1 on Amazon. But Amazon has actually been pretty impressive the last few months with what they're doing. I think their app store is increasing market share on Google kind of every day. So they're up and coming.
And that's only North America?
Yeah, that's North America. So when you look internationally, Korea is like a really crazy. You can make a lot of money in Korea, but the number of distribution channels on Android, like we've got primarily Google Play and Amazon in North America. In Korea, they have like 20 different app stores kind of thing. And the same with China. Like Korea and China are really interesting international markets just because of the way things work there. We really don't have a lot of experience in international sales, especially in those two countries. I mean, we've talked to a few people, but I think your best kind of bet to get success in those markets is to actually get somebody to publish your titles in those markets. So we've been speaking with a few publishers, but they take your titles and they'll introduce them into the 20 different distribution channels, et cetera, and that kind of stuff. So there are a lot different distribution channels internationally. Amazon also just opened up their app store for international distribution in 5 other countries: England, France, Spain, Germany. Don't have it in Canada yet, but maybe they'll get there eventually.
I heard the tax issue is a problem.
That is a
Internationally as well. Like for indie developers, it's just too much of a headache.
yeah. That's it is, but that's why you just got to hire somebody from Deloitte to handle those problems for you, right? Ryan? No, it is. I mean, it's not like Apple, right? They don't take care of that stuff for you. So it is a matter of just talking to the right people and make sure you're doing the right things, which again can be a little bit of a deterrent for independent game developers, but it is just another hurdle to the problems you have to deal on Android that you don't have to deal on iOS, for example. Amazon is an example of they're going the more Applewhite, where they're handling that stuff for you. So yeah, so I just printed off some interesting statistics for our game on iOS versus Android. These are the ranks from the last June to October. So on iOS, Stickman Golf, this is top overall. So we've been within the top 400 for the last year and a half now. I don't think we've dropped out of the top 400. This line here is the top ranking in games. So I think we kind of average around the 150 mark. But the interesting thing about Stickman Golf is it's really been there for the last year and a half, which hasn't happened with any of our other games, and I think is kind of an anomaly because I don't think this typically happens. And then this kind of area in the middle here, that's when we did our last free promotion where we set the price to free, and things change for a week, and we end up with a couple 100,000 downloads, and then we switch it back to paid. But you can see it's kind of leveled off. And then on Android, we're kind of we're not ranked as highly on Android as we are. This is the free ranks too, so it's a little bit more competitive. But we're within the top 400 games on free games on Android right now. And the interesting thing though is that our revenue from both of these platforms isn't that far apart right now. We're a top premium game if you consider top being within the 400. I mean, I still think that's pretty impressive considering the sheer amount of games on iOS now. But and then in the top 400 free games on Android, and the revenue's not that far apart. So there might be a misconception out there that you can't make money on Android, et cetera, but I think that is changing radically now.
Can you describe a little bit about these free promotions that you're doing? Why is on one side would be, okay, I can offer a bunch of sales. Why would I?
Yeah.
Free for a little while. So how have you found that makes an impact?
That's everyone asks me that, and the common misconception is exactly that. If you give your product away for free for a month, think of all the money you lost, right? And that's when we first did this, 2 years ago, we maybe did our first free promotion, and I kind of thought that in the back of my head. I'm like, aren't we just going to lose sales from doing this? But absolutely 100% no. Do not think of it that way. Don't even if you're getting into this, don't think of it as losing sales. The interesting thing in this market right now is if I want to actually if I've got a free game and I want to actually buy somebody to play my game, which is let's say I want to acquire 10,000 people playing my free game. The cost of that now on Android and iOS is over $1. So if I've got a free game that I'm giving away for free. I want 10,000 users to be playing my game tomorrow, say. It's actually going to cost me over $10,000 just to get people to play my game. And you get these people through, advertising or incentivized pop-ups in other games, cross-promotions, et cetera, et cetera. But the cost per acquisition for a free game in mobile is over $1 now. So obviously the value there is if you can get 100,000 people playing your game without any cost, then that's almost like a $10,000 credit that you didn't have to spend $10,000 to get $10,000 people playing your game. So what ended up happening, and I wish I could show you another graph, but when we did our first free promotion on iOS, our average rank was way down. We weren't even in the top 400 for games. We did our free promotion. We maybe had, at total of that time, 100,000 downloads for the paid version. When we did our free promotion, we shot up to top 10 free games, and we left it there for a week, and we ended up with 2 million free downloads. So that's great. I mean, we wouldn't have made 2 million downloads being paid that week, obviously, right? So it's kind of like we got an influx of 2 million more people playing our game for free. But then what happens is after that free promotion, after that week was up, we just put it back to paid. And our revenues and ranks skyrocketed after that, right? So we had pretty much flatlined at a very, very low rank and a very, very low revenue per day. we did a free promotion, and now we've flatlined like way up here kind of thing. So don't think of it as like you're losing revenue, because these people wouldn't have paid for your game in the first place. They're only downloading now because it's free and it's at top 5 or whatever. But the influx of users is very valuable. I mean, the more people that are playing your game, the more recommendations, the more referrals you get, the more somebody looking over somebody's shoulder. Oh, hey, what game are you playing? Oh, Super Stickman Golf. You should go get it. Oh, it's like $1 now, but whatever. You know.
That's all true, but I'd like to point out that that is a very exceptional case. That doing a free promotion like that does not always result in some kinds of interest, and very few developers can have that kind of success.
Yeah. Well, the secret to doing a free promotion, is you have to get the app into into visibility range. If you can't get your app into visibility range, you're not going to hit that. You're not going to ride that wave of just a massive influx of hundreds of thousands or millions of users. If you do a free promotion and you don't tell anybody about it, or you don't line all your ducks up in a row, you're not going to reach the top 100 or top 50 in your category. And that's kind of where you start to see a massive influx in users, because once you kind of get into top 25 on iOS is actually where you need to get to in order to be considered like a successful free promotion. If you do a free promotion and you don't get into the top 25, it probably most of the time isn't worth it. We were fortunate. When we did our first free promotion for stick golf, we went through a company called Free App a Day. At that time, again, the market way less competitive, but at that time, we looked at Free App a Day, and we looked over their last 30 apps they promoted every day. Every single app they promoted went into the top 10. This is like a year and a half ago. But they just had that amount of power that they could, every free promotion or every app they featured, themselves alone could drive that app up into the top 10. Now it's like not even close. Free App a Day can't maybe if you look at, I always look at these stats like religiously every day, but if you do Free App a Day promotion, that's all you do. Your game only gets maybe can break the top 100 overall, which is maybe like 10,000 downloads a day, which is not enough if you actually want to have a really good free promotion. What we do with free promotions now is we basically line up all of our ducks in a row. So we do Free App a Day, we do other advertising campaigns. Cross promotions are you have to get cross promotions with other developers. So we work with 6 other developers, and we line up all the promotion in a 24-hour period so that we can get 10,000 from this company, 10,000 from this company. These developers are going to advertise our free promotion in their games, so we get downloads for them. I mean, it's really tough to get into the top 25 on iOS now. You have to have either a lot of money or you have to call in a lot of favors to get your app downloaded. And I think that this one here, this promotion here, we made. This pink one is overall, and this blue one is games. So we didn't even make the top 25 games on iOS, and that's I think that's about close to a week. But this free promotion was driven purely on a cross promotion deal we did with another developer. So this developer, I'm under NDA, so I can't say exactly who it is, but this developer has a really high-performing free iOS title, and our agreement with working with these developers is that, okay, you have to do some promotions for us when we do a free promotion, and that will drive downloads. But this actually proved to be more valuable than doing Free App a Day, which traditionally in the past has been the be-all and end-all of free promotions. So I mean, it totally changes. Free App a Day, super, super powerful a year and a half ago. Now they're not that powerful, but you can use them along with a lot of other mechanisms to do your free promotions. But you're 100% Mike, or 100% right. I mean, if you don't have that enough oomph in that free promotion, it will fizzle out and it won't be worth as much, right?
And your game has to be
That's like the foundation of building a house, right? Like if you can have a good game on the bottom, then it makes building up a lot easier, right?
Just one more quick question.
Yeah.
Do you recommend free at the launch of the app or free somewhere?
It's a tough question. I think that depends on what the app is and how the app is designed. For it, again, it really depends on the app, but there's. I was in a meeting with another developer, and we had a term for this launch strategy, and I think it was called Paymium, which is launch as a paid app, and after launch as a paid app, integrate freemium game mechanics in your game so you can actually make money off in-app transactions, and then after like 3 months, convert it to a free app. So this strategy has been done a few times. It might not be intentional, but if you look at Temple Run on iOS, like they launched as a paid game, and then eventually they migrated to a free game, ended up making a lot more money as free, ended up having a lot more users as free, and now it just has stayed free. Another example of this is Jetpack Joyride by Halfbrick. Initially they launched as a paid game, and then converted it to a free game. I mean, it works for those games because those games have been built so that you can actually earn money in game. But I actually think that that's a good strategy. Again, it depends on your game. If you've got a really good game that has a really high user retention rate, I would recommend going free. You just really, if you want to make money, you have to think about how you're going to make money from the game from the get-go if you're selling it for free. So you have to integrate some sort of mechanic into the game to monetize it when you're giving it away for free. Paid apps, paid apps still work too. If you don't have any way to make money from in-game, I would recommend sticking as a paid app and trying to market it that way. But it's really tough to say definitively one way or the other. I think it always depends on the game. And this is again with the free promotions. This is what we found just kind of being in this industry last year is think of like why is Zynga paying $180 million for Draw Something and why are all these acquisitions being made? It's like whenever game X ends up with a lot of traction, they just end up getting bought out by some bigger fish. And basically it boils down to is whoever can message the most users instantly wins. Brand loyalty, like we've got a this large user base is so extremely valuable. And in Stickman Golf, we've really been focusing on, if we find a user that loves our game, how can we capture that user's information so that we can directly market to them, when we launch the sequel or launch the next game. So we've done a mailing list. We've had a mailing list. In all of our games, you can click on the news item, or you can scroll around in the game, and somewhere in the game there'll be like, sign up for an email mailing list to get new news on products, or we put push notifications into our games so that now if we launch a new title, we can say, hey, if you like our games, go check out the new one we just relaunched, yesterday, kind of thing. Twitter, Facebook likes, like all these companies are focusing on all these things because it gives you the ability to reach users instantly, and that's the key. It's not valuable for you to market over a week's time, because then you're going to split up your downloads. You want to actually market to your users in a very short time frame, really around product launch, so you can get the highest visibility for your app as you can. So like I said, free game of the days. I mean, this is something that we always do to increase our user base. Like you said, maybe you give 20,000 copies of your game away for free. Maybe, maybe you give away 50,000. You don't break into the top 100, but at least you have 50,000 more people play your game. But maybe you've been able, if you have your game set up where if people really like your game, they can subscribe to your newsletter, or you've got a push notification, or like you on Facebook or whatever, but maybe you capture 5,000 of those people love your game, and if you could reach them on your next game launch, you might have guaranteed purchases for your next game. So it might be, you can argue that there is more value in the free promotions other than just active user base. If you can reach users that will buy your next game, then that's very valuable as well. So yeah, these are the statistics from some of our free promotions. We went from 100,000 or 10,000 daily active users. So DAU is how many unique people play your game a day. We went from 10,000 to 100,000. We have more exposure. Revenue decay is less. And again, the mailing list sign up, when we popped up an ad saying, hey, join our mailing list to learn about when our next game is launched, we had 25,000 people sign up. We wouldn't have had those 25,000 people if we wouldn't have given the game away for free in the first place. Again, I touched on this before, but free app a day is becoming less and less effective. So free app a day is just the company that promotes your app has gone free, and they have different marketing channels. But the space on iOS is just so competitive that their value, how high they can get your game ranked based on their marketing is just becoming less and less effective. So you can't just rely on one-shop solution to get your free promotion successful. You have to leverage every single thing you can, a cross-promotion deal, do another marketing company here, do the free app a day thing here, do as many things as you can, because it's really tough. It's really tough to get onto into the top ranks. Of course, if you have $100,000, you can buy 100,000 users too. So there's always that. On Android, again, it's different. There's no free app a day. You actually can't transition your game from free to paid on Android like you can on iOS. Google actually has a big red box on their developer console next to the price of your game that says, if you switch your game to free, you will never be able to switch it back to paid. So if you're thinking about Android and you're thinking about free app promotions, don't think about it, because you can't do them on Android. If you put your app to free on Android, you cannot switch it back to paid. Again, it's like a Google thing. I don't know why they do it. Maybe they don't like the whole shiftiness of the App Store, free to paid to free to paid. But you definitely can't do that kind of stuff on Android. So on Android, to actually get a boost in your rank, you actually have to leverage cross-promotion deals, or you have to use another mechanism other than these free app a day companies. And again, today we do everything we possibly can for promotions. We call in favors, we integrate with a few different marketing companies. So just to wrap things up, I've got I guess a couple of the keys to success for, I guess, what we've kind of done that has been successful for us. One of the things that I think is just inherent in mobile game is that mobile gamers just have extremely short attention spans. So just accept it and build it into your business model. People don't play games on their cell phones for hours at a time like they do console games. And it's not an immersive experience. It's something they do to kill time. Like it's they play on the subway going to work, or they play on the can, or going to the washroom or whatever. I mean, this is when people play mobile games. Freemium games have kind of been able to counteract that because they kind of build this sense of you're building a city with the user, and there's a sense of I've invested so much time into this game, I have to keep going. I mean, that's kind of more of the psychological aspects of these freemium games. But they do kind of target a longer retention. But there's been a lot of casual games that are just strictly geared to short attention spans. Excuse me. Yeah, I think if you can design a game that's geared towards a 5-minute session, that's kind of ideal for a mobile game. And build a good product. Like, I think that's fundamental of any kind of key to success. I mean, there's been tons of examples out there where the game isn't as polished as it could be. I mean, the developer doesn't have any money, but the game is just so good that it just takes off. And I think that's just a good foundation to build anything on, is just actually make sure your product is good and fun. No one understands the economies of the App Store or the Android market. I mean, this is getting so complex nowadays. I mean, 2 years ago it was less convoluted and less complex. Now there's so many different ways: freemium, in-app purchases, marketing, what price do you go at launch, what cross-promotion deals, what marketing tools do you have at your disposal. I mean, it's really complicated. So I mean, if you're really trying to focus on building an app or building a mobile game, you should really understand how you're going to make money and what the economies of these app stores are. Again, I just think coordinating your marketing efforts at launch is a good idea. If you look at the graph of products on in mobile, they peak on day one and they just go downhill from there. If you can get as high as you can on day one, the better off you're going to be. For us, for our marketing, we don't really spend a lot of money in paying for marketing. The internet is, it's just interesting because you can do so many things yourself. When we first were marketing Super Stick Golf and Stick Golf, I was maybe writing like 50 emails a day and to different review sites, etc. But the emails were all handwritten, specific for that site, because you have to realize these sites get like thousands of emails. Hey, review my game, or feature my game on your blog or whatever. They get thousands of these a day. So if you kind of write them a generic email, it's just going to go straight in the trash, basically. So generate as much buzz as you can: Twitter, Facebook, definitely review sites. Again, if you've got a mailing list or you've got some mechanism to reach your existing user base, obviously leverage that for cross promotions. Free promotions, I recommend them, but you have to do them right. You have to extract all the value out of them as you can, and right now you can't go with just one company to make sure he handles your free promotion. You have to kind of call in all your favors. I still think iOS is the main market if you're thinking about mobile games or whatever. Definitely iOS is you can't ignore it. Like, that should be your focus. But Android is heating up right now, and Android I'd say is the number 2 market for mobile games right now. Again, try and get press coverage, the press kit, learn to write the good email. I think this has been something that has worked really well for us. Do a trailer, video trailer for your game, but actually include gameplay. When I talk to reviewers, we know a few reviewers from review sites now, and they love gameplay trailers. Like, if your email has a link in it that's like YouTube and you have gameplay, they don't even read your email. They just click on the gameplay link and watch the gameplay. And if they think it's cool, then they'll go back and read your email of what you're saying. But that's the key. These guys get so many emails. You just have to, do them right. So make sure you do a gameplay video and have that link in your email, because that's the first thing they click on. Have it in the first 5 lines of the email, and then make a really cool gameplay video.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah.
Get to know other developers.
Totally.
because everyone, or at least the guys that I know, everyone's friends. Everyone wants everyone else to succeed, and part of that is, you know, someone will launch a game and they'll be like, oh, I've got some banner ads, and want to run ads in their games. And all these other developers have free games that have banner ads, and they'll run ads for you for free.
Yeah.
And they're successful, popular games like air hockey for Mac, which has millions of users and hundreds of thousands of daily active users still. And as you get to know more of these developers, you know, you make friends with them, and they'll help you launch your app because they want you to succeed too. And part of that is being able to reciprocate in some way. And so I've seen a lot of developers say, you know, can you push some banner ads for me? I can't really do anything because our game's not built for it right now, but maybe our next game will be. Like, make it so that you can also promote other people's apps in some way. Build something that you can turn on remotely, like through a web server or something that will launch a pop-up at the beginning of your game or something like that can promote someone else's game or something like that. Something that you can turn on yourself without having to submit an update or whatever. Like, that whole cross-promotion thing is super valuable, and it's important to be able to give back to the people who are helping you as well. So kind of think about that as you're building your own game.
Yeah, that's the main way we get our promotions, is through cross promotions with other developers. Like when we launched TrainYard Express on Android, we ended up getting a deal with the Temple Run guys from Keith and Natalia. When I just reached out to them and said, hey, can you like push some advertising for TrainYard for Matt? We're getting his game onto Android this week or whatever. And they're like, yeah, we'll do it, sure, no problem. Because they know Matt, they know me, everybody works together, helps each other succeed. So TrainYard Express launched on Android, and if you opened up Temple Run on Android, you get like a little pop-up that said, hey, go check out TrainYard, and you know, for free or whatever. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I mean the cross promotion is so valuable. Like that's the main value with working with other people, is doing these cross promotion deals for sure. Yeah.
I understand, of course, that excellent rankings equate to excellent sales. The question I have is, it seems like Apple has changed their ranking algorithms over the past several months or so, in that you don't just get ranked higher because you get downloads, but it seems to have something to do also with the amount of time people spend using your app.
Yeah.
I wonder.
I think that you might be talking about search rankings.
So let's imagine about top 25 games or top 25, pro apps or what have you. In order to get into that rank on the iTunes store, have you noticed then?
They do that. Like there's every time they switch, like they always say have an algorithm for ranking top ranks. And I've noticed, like over the course of the last 2 years, there have been like significant switches. About maybe a year and a half ago, they must have changed their ranking algorithm, because if you looked at the Facebook app, it had been consistently at like the 90s or 80s overall. And then they must have done something, but the Facebook app and a whole bunch of other apps that aren't ranked as high but probably have massive daily usage, like obviously Facebook or Twitter, they rose up really quickly into like the top 5. And they've changed it since then. I think they changed that algorithm, tweak it, polish it, maybe more than what we think. But the problem is they don't actually ever publicize what they're doing there, right? It's all behind the scenes, so you never really know. Maybe they don't like the fact that people with a lot of money can buy a large user base on launch day. So maybe they're putting more weight on active usage per day for this app, which I'm sure they're doing. I mean, it makes sense, right? If you're developing a ranking algorithm to rank apps that are used more, kind of thing. But I don't know definitively, what it is that they rank. And the thing is, you can't count on anything either. I mean, Apple could completely switch up anything at any time. So, don't kind of hedge your bets a little bit. I mean, that's primarily why we've gotten into cross-platform development too. Is now we're not completely dependent on Apple. I mean, we had a problem with a trademark, which, that's why we changed stick golf to stickman golf. But the biggest issue for us was, we probably could have fought this trademark dispute in court, but it would have taken a lot of time. And during that time, our app would have been pulled off the App Store. And, a wise man once told me that every legal decision is also an economic decision. So even though we might have won this, particular legal battle, we probably would have lost economically, kind of thing. So we ended up rebranding to Stickman Golf. But the risk is, for every day we're not on the App Store, we're not making any money, and that's a huge kind of risk to have above your head. So that's another reason why we're kind of hedging a little bit going into Android. Now we have multiple sources of revenue, multiple platforms that we're distributing through.
Question for you, Stuart.
Yeah.
The publishing company, so one of the key advantages there is the portability between Apple and Android.
Yeah.
We get a lot of questions about the economics of the game, whether it's a freemium with models and stuff. How involved are you guys in
On the Android stuff? Yeah, on the Android stuff, we're pretty involved with all the developers we're working with, because most of the developers haven't really thought about Android as even a viable platform to get their games onto. So for all the developers we're working with on Android, we're pretty much integrating a lot of that stuff. So we're heavily involved with monetization of the games. We've got our frameworks that we've built. We can do ads. We can do cross promos. We can, if banner ads are monetizing the best on Android, we'll rework the game so that it includes banner ads. If interstitial ads are working, from what we've seen for the Android platform is we're seeing the most money coming through advertising revenue. I think that's probably accurate. Look at a lot of the big games, like take Rovio for example. Angry Birds, they're making their money off ads on Android. If the biggest company in mobile gaming right now, if that's their strategy on Android, probably a safe bet that that's probably the right one. But even from our numbers, we've got in-app purchases. We integrate in-app purchases for a lot of the games. But right now, the money's coming from advertising revenue on Android, and we work pretty closely with the developers to kind of work the games into that monetization method for Android. Yes.
So you guys are moving more towards publishing, right? Or is that not fair to say? So you're still doing games, right?
Yeah. We've basically got two corporations now. We've got a publishing side and our development side. So
which one are you more actively developing now?
I'd say they're pretty much 50-50. We're building the sequel for Super Stick Golf right now. That's really taking up a lot of our internal development time. And then our publishing company as well. We're growing out. Our main value for the publishing company right now is we developed some porting technology that allows us to easily take a game designed for iOS and get that game running onto Android. So we've invested a significant amount of time and money into kind of polishing that technology. And right now the publishing company is at the point where we're getting a fair amount of market traction in the Android world, where we can actually drive a lot of installs for new games. We have a lot of marketing contacts. I forget the games that I had listed up there, but we have contacts with the Google editorial team, so we were able to get a few of the games on their featured list. And if you get featured on Google Play, it's like 50, 100,000 downloads a day kind of thing, right? So it's extremely valuable to start developing these contacts and having these contacts to be able to market to or whatever kind of thing.
Can you speak just a little bit on how your framework is built for companies coming and then you take it on publishing them?
Okay, yeah. So the way it works right now is most of the companies we're working with, again, they built a game for iOS. They haven't even thought about cross-platform. And the game engine that we develop our games on is a game engine called Cocos 2D iPhone. It's sorry to get all techie on you guys for a second here, but the game engine is written in Objective-C, which is like Apple's native language for doing native games on iOS. And basically our technology has allowed us to compile all the native Objective-C code and run it directly onto Android. So there's no rewrite involved. There's no kind of interpretation layer involved. There's no kind of funky things going down. We just actually take the Objective-C code, compile it into native libraries, and are able to run those native libraries on Android directly. So there's the main kind of value is that we take the source code, we look at it, we tweak at it. There's stuff you have to hook up for Android that you don't on iOS, like the back button. On iOS, you don't have a hardware back button, but on Android, you need to support this back button. So we've added a few enhancements to this game engine that we primarily work on for supporting of those kind of things on Android. And then what we do is once we have the game running on Android, we'll ship the source back to the developer so that they can reintegrate that into their source code. And now updates are extremely easy because if they make a version 1.1 of their game or they add 50 levels, we can actually just take that, recompile on Android, and distribute a 1.1 version update on Android. So it really makes updates incredibly easy for Android builds.
So you're making money on the support mainly, or on the
So the publishing, it's a revenue share. I mean, I can't go into details of exactly what our agreements are with developers. I mean, some developers are different than others, but the majority is a revenue share agreement. So we take a percentage of revenue from Android sales. I'm getting the. Yeah, no worries.
Thank you very much, Jordan.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And
Oh, wait. Oh,
on behalf of Deloitte, you now have a barbecue set for your rooftop patio.
oh
Good
right on,
Noodlecake.
right on, yeah.
Just before you go, you'll see a piece of paper on your table. That's a survey for New Media Manitoba for the effectiveness of today. And also on your way out, if you could grab one of these, it has details of our upcoming predictions event in January.